great. So we're going to talk about the next internet. And this is a really important topic that affects all of us, humanity, but internet marketers as well. What's changing and how will it impact your field? This is a talk that I delivered at a think tank in Germany, where last year I modified some slides slightly, but the predictions from there are all holding up. So I didn't swap out all the latest model names because, let's be real, they change every 2 seconds. The predictions and the patterns in this are all like real. And the fact that I didn't have to change much at all on this presentation just goes to show how well we're on track for all this to come true. But I want you guys to know that as a background. So as a background for those who didn't hear me speak on day one, I was born in Belgium. I grew up studying computer science, moved to the United States in 2006, and have been working with a lot of companies, great companies here in the States. Since then, I've co-founded 2 marketing companies, has several exits, and I've been working in AI and machine learning since 2008. So I'm a walking dictionary when it comes to artificial intelligence and SEO. I have a PhD in generalist, right? Which is a specialty too. It's hard to be a good generalist. Some people say like I'm a generalist, and it's almost like an excuse for not being good at any one thing, right? But being good at many things at a sufficient level where you can actually work with people, that's a skill too. Anyhow, we're going to talk about a bit of the trend of how AI is developing to kind of situate our mind what's really going on. And then I'm going to talk to you about things that you may have not really put together yet, and you'll see how everything is coming together into what I call like the next internet. Some people call it Web 3.0. A lot of that was swiped away, like with thanks to the crypto bros who gave everything a bad rep. I have a lot of spam in my folders from those. Like, I'm convinced that half of the Twitter posts are crypto bros, and the other half are probably OnlyFans or something. Elon Musk said he was going to buy that to get rid of the bots. What are they all doing? Like, I get like posts that I made like 2 years ago. All of a sudden, like, I get a like. I'm like, who likes content from 2 years ago? It's like, check out my profile. It was like Elon Musk apparently is doing a great job with that. Anyways, AI models are fast. Here's a screenshot of Llama 3. I know we have like the next version of Llama. It's kind of a doozy. It's not so good. But Llama 3 was a great model. Not saying Llama 4 is bad. It's just that they kind of lost the momentum a bit. But Llama 3 here is operating at 1,200 plus tokens per second. Okay, so like even in this talk, and I'm talking quite fast. How fast am I talking? Am I talking too fast? Too slow? Just right? Okay, great. Well, an average human will like talk at 3 tokens per second. Okay, so let that sink in. And this is Grok with a, well, it's the other one. Whatever one the Elon Musk model is not. I think this is Grok with a Q or, anyways, look it up. It's a model provider. They host models, and this is the Meta model that they're hosting. They have some like really fancy chip to make it fast inference. The reason these chips work so fast, do you know why they can make them so fast? Does anyone know in the audience? Do you want to know? The reason they have that kind of throughput is because the chips that you and I have in our computers, they're generalized. They're good at a bit of everything. A little bit of gaming, Steam, a little bit of browsing, a little bit of this, that. But LLMs are really simple. It's matrix multiplication. That's it. So the bigger your matrix, right, multiplied by your input tokens, that's the calculation it needs to do. That's all it needs to do all day long. It's one calculation. It's really easy to design a chip that does one type of calculation and make that very efficient. So they made that chip just for LLMs, and that's why they can get this token throughput. Even so, you can now have chips that are really, really fast, much faster than humans. And this is only the beginning. I'm now running, I think, like the DeepSeek model was like really the moment where I could run something that was close to state of the art on my own computer in quantized form. Do you guys know what quantized means? Yeah. So think of it like running a model at lower precision so it fits on my memory. I still get the big model, but I'm losing a little bit of precision. So I was able to run the DeepSeek model earlier this year. That's why it had such a big stock swing. I could run that on my own computer. These models are getting really good, but they're also really fast. And when you can reason really fast, I mean, this could do, because this, I mean, even if it's not as good as I am, think about how much more in tokens, how much more can it think per second than I can? How many more possible angles can it contemplate than I can in 3 seconds time? In 1 second time. That's really something. The other thing that's happening right now is that these models are getting ridiculously cheap. So what we're talking about here is the cost for knowledge. Well, you know, the way that you experience that is when you have to go and hire somebody for your team. Somebody gives you a budget, and then you try to hire the highest knowledge you can, highest talent for that budget that you have. But with AI, you know, it's not as good as humans, but the cost of it keeps dropping. And so here's a whopping chart where from the time from GPT-4 to 4.0, it became, that's just like the span of, this is no time at all, it became 12 times more affordable. Now, I don't know about you, but my employees didn't get 12 times more affordable for the intelligence they offered. Okay? And it gets better than that, because you look at like Claude 2, which came before 3 and 3.7, but Claude 2 it was a big model, and I heard you like Claude. I like Claude too, because a lot of these models now, they're gaming the benchmarks. They're optimizing it for humans liking it. But the fundamental intelligence, that's still what matters. Claude, Anthropic is slow to release their next model, but they're not fudging as much and not like trying to be the cool kid, which is ultimately important. I read a little quote, okay? I read this last night, I think, right before I passed out, somewhere between like passing out and falling asleep, in between the last thing I read last night. AI platforms have this thing called memory, where they like get to know you, and sometimes they let you edit that memory, like view the memories they stored and let you like remove everything. And the AI researcher said, well, we're learning that they're a narcissist, but nobody wants to believe they're a narcissist, so they're deleting that memory. And so letting humans edit the AI's memory is not a good idea to make the model perform better. Maybe not so charitable of that guy, but I think there's some truth to it. Either way, Claude 2 to Llama 3, 8 billion, from that 10 months. And you can see here on this axis, if you look at the chart, you see here kind of the chatbot arena leaderboard score. So you see Claude 2 is underperforming Llama 3, 8 billion, okay? So it's technically a worse model, at least if you take this leaderboard as like the score, right? Which we're not trying to say. What I'm trying to say is instead of this, okay? The cost from this here to this, 10-month span, the difference in cost, 1,000x. Who wants to get a 1,000x pay cut? Because that is the same amount of intelligence, but 1,000 times cheaper. And I want everyone to just grok it, pun intended. I want everyone to really realize what's happening here. This is not slowly improving. We have no wall they are also powerful. Every model, they say, like, what do you need to have a great model? You need lots of data, and you need lots of compute. Now, there's people that say, well, we have a wall with compute. Yeah, we do, but chips are getting more efficient, and because there's a lot of need for energy, we're figuring out our energy side as well. And then on the data side, oh, we run out of data. Yeah, we've already done training on all the internet. I didn't tell Google, but I really scraped all their videos and watched it and trained my model on it too. Lawsuit. No. Are we really out of data? Who here thinks we're out of data? Do you know that in the last year or so, we probably produced more data than in all of humanity combined? So if the best model from a year ago was around and now has a whole, like all of humanity's history was like added a new like information generated and structure, that'd be today. We're not running out of data. But okay, there's still a cap, right? Because there's still only a year's worth of data. It's not like we can have AI learn the next 100 years of data on its own, right? Right? Wrong again. You're going to hear experts talk about that, but they're wrong. Here's a simple reason why, okay? We don't yet have robots walking among us experiencing or recording what it's like to be here today. That's information too. Not all information is found on a Wikipedia page. Right? I was here. So until we have robots joining the physical world, have a sense of physics and moving around in the world that we live, there's a ton of data they're simply not even capturing. Yeah, and I hear you all thinking, yeah, well, even that is not the human experience, right? It's just robots. Okay, who am I to say? What I can tell you is this. They're not even capturing that information today. So we're not out of data, by no means, right? The moment we're all going to walk around with Mark Zuckerberg glasses and cameras and record each other, which is going to be the end of privacy, which should be a talk on a conference like this, because it's going to be a big deal. I think our grandchildren are going to grow up in a world like maybe we're the last generation to have a concept of privacy. And it's going to change society. So I don't know about you, but when I'm talking in public, I try to think about how this reflects on my brand, how this reflects on my company, how this reflects on my family, how this affects my reputation. And, you know, I try to be a good citizen. I don't cuss and so forth. But, you know, I'm pretty sure I say some things I should not say from time to time. And to all those privacy not loving citizens in the future, like, forgive me in advance. I'm only human, right? But on this chart here, we're talking about one of the constraints that people talk about a lot, which is compute. And here we have a chart of just how much compute each of these models are taking. And what you have here is called flop. And this is floating operations per second, like how many it can calculate. And remember, these models are all like, this is just math. It's just multiplying numbers. It's really simple, really. An AI model is like a really compressed database. That's all it is. And you get your prompt, that's a number, and you multiply that number with the model weight, and boom, you have numbers come out, and that's your prompt, that's your tokens. That's all it is. It's like a really compressed database, but somehow, because it was structured like a neural net, somehow it can do amazing things. What a discovery. And we're live to experience that. But this chart here shows how this compute is evolving. Now, if we continue this trend, our compute power is on track to improve over 1,000,000x. If you want to say percentage, add 2 zeros to it. 100 million%. That sounds more marketable. That's a lot of percent, like, increase. And that is just how much more efficient and capable the chips are becoming. Of course, this is how we go from exaflop to zettaflop. Somebody, I think it was Kurzweil or something, a futurist, years ago, he said, like, yeah, when computers reach 1 exaflop, it's going to have the equivalent of a human brain. Well, we already have exaflops now. And I think I think the latest Google TPU machine, which is a tensor processing unit, TPU, that's their machine, their chips, right? Their latest one box has multiple chips in it. One box, all right? Not a whole data center. One achieves an exaflop. So this is going fast. Be ready for it. So the last thing we have then is the energy bottleneck. Will we be constrained by energy? And yeah, the answer is like maybe. I did some math last year, but as the compute capabilities increase by 1 million in the next decade, our energy policy is lagging behind a factor of 735x. In other words, we need to increase our energy efficiency or production by more than 700x. Okay, and fancy marketing speech, add to 0 and call it percentage. That's a lot. Will we get that? That's a big if, right? So the likely bottleneck is going to be energy. But it's like if you have to ask people, right, your microwave or Netflix, AC or internet. I mean, at some point we're going to have, AI is going to be such a part of our lives. It's like, I can't turn off my best friend, right? So we're going to have to figure that out. This is a challenge. If you're in this room and you think you can invest in this or invent something to make that better, you can make this future happen. But there is some hope here, because you don't actually need to throw the best AI at every problem. Turns out even humans have a limbic brain, and we do a lot of things without having to like, I am so I think. I know that's someone else. But still, we don't need to throw our best model at every problem. There's many problems that we go through, like, hey, moving this foot. You think I think about how I move? No, it's just like those dancers. I just move on stage. I'm only thinking about it. My limbic brain is doing that. Low processing. So by offloading lower efficiency, lower complexity tasks to more efficient models, smaller models, we don't need to exhaust all that energy supply. You know what I'd like to use that energy on? How about a frontier AI model that can cure cancer? Hey, that's a good use of energy, right? I'm sure the penguins won't mind that. All right, so I want to talk about collective consciousness. I had for a moment thought to approach this deck in a different way and make some new slides. And I had this picture of like the human neuron. Does anyone know the long kind of arm that the neuron has that stretches out? What is it called? That how it connects to other neurons. Not the ending thing. That's called the synapse. But the long arm. Does anybody know what the name is? Nobody gives that credit. It's so important. It's called axon. And you know what happened with civilization? People talk about human civilization, right? It's like, I remember, I'm sure, you went to elementary school, human civilization, okay? And then there was fire, okay? And what's the next thing they talk about after fire? What's the next big thing? The wheel. The wheel. What did the wheel give us? Well, agriculture, but also like roads connecting towns. You know what? Connection. That's the axon right there, the road between towns. And so as towns start connecting more, then you have cities with a lot of roads, and you have countries, and the next thing you have airplanes. Then we have tariffs. The more we connect, the more dense our connection is, the more we become networked, the higher the achievement of civilization. That's why, like, in the countryside, it feels like time stands still and nothing ever happens. You know, Sally Mae went to the dance with good old Farmer Joe's kid, and 20, 50 years later, they're still married, and life goes on. Life is slow. But then we had the internet. And what do you think the internet is? It's connecting your computer to your computer over what? a network. So when we talk about a neural network, AI, the word is in there. It's the network. So what might the next internet look like then? It's a network. But the neural network, of course, represents what we would say like, hey, this is like more like a human brain than an internet, right? Do you understand? But do you also understand that you are a superorganism? Do you know that you are, like every cell has all the DNA and all the instructions that make you you? Yet, somehow, the cells in my foot are really cooperating today as I'm walking across this stage and somehow trusting in the network and the collaboration. I am a superorganism. I am amazing. But you are also superorganisms. And what is so fascinating is that even though you have your identity and your individuality, we're not just acting as individuals. We're acting as a group, as a collective consciousness, as a superorganism. But we have a superorganism here in this room when we're brainstorming with our colleagues on a problem. We're not just one. We're all these minds connected together. Like, for example, I believe like mother's intuition is just quantum entanglement that happened in the womb. Quote me on that in 20 years from now, okay? But we are connected. We are a network. Humanity itself is a superorganism. And you look at those ant colonies and the kind of super colonies they can build, that is phenomenal. Has anyone ever like looked at army ants and what they can build? That is phenomenal. That is a network. That is a superorganism. Okay, so I'm going to make a point here. So AI, I'm going to apply it to AI, but I want you to picture a Netflix show, Alone and Afraid. You're alone in the Amazon by yourself. I'm signing up for the show. I go there. No, I didn't. But imagine if I did, because it makes for a great story. On day 2, I have to press the red button or flare or whatever, because I'm going to die. I'm not equipped to live by myself in the Amazon. I don't know how many here in this room would survive. Maybe a few of you. I applaud you if you can. You are really a superorganism. But without tools, forget about it. Okay, so with some tools, maybe. Okay? Maybe. As long as my tools include a backpack with lots of food and stuff to keep me warm and dry, I might make it a few days. But really, what about if we have a whole tribe in the Amazon? What if we have a whole tribe of support structure? My chances of survival dramatically increase. Can you see how much more powerful we become? Now, what about 8 billion people collaborating? That's much more than a little village tribe. This is how you get people to the moon. This is how you go to the stars. A superorganism. In other words, the higher density the network, the higher rate of our communication, the higher our ability to use tools, the stronger the civilization we are capable of building, and the stronger the superorganism, right? And this is true of the internet too. Imagine an internet with like 2 websites, right? Wouldn't be so much of an internet, right? So what is fascinating about this superorganism is that the individual unit of intelligence that powers all of humanity is still one human brain. I want you to think about that. All of human civilization's achievement, all that collective networking, internet, this conference, everything, the individual unit of intelligence is still one human brain. So let's extrapolate that, what that means for AI. What could one AI achieve without tools? Well, that was GPT-3. But now AI can use tools like it can control the web browser, it can control your computer. Anyone heard of Model Context Protocol? All right, so really cool example. It's first I'm going to tell you what it is. Model Context Protocol is just like the Internet Protocol. It's a protocol. Protocol in computer science language is like the English language. It allows me to talk to you. But if you have a different protocol, let's say Chinese, I'm stuck. I can't communicate. So protocols allow computer systems to talk to one another. They have a protocol, an agreement, a handshake. This is how we do language. So the Model Context Protocol is a protocol that was designed by Anthropic so that AI models can talk to computer software. And it requires a little bit of connective tissue, but like a really cool example. I'll give you a cool example. There's this open source software called Blender, and Blender allows you to make like 3D models and stuff. Like movie people use that stuff. Okay, so somebody made a Model Context Protocol layer for Blender. They gave access to the AI model via that protocol. And now somebody could go into chat and say, make me a house, or make me this. So now the AI model can control that tool over that protocol. And all of a sudden, we gave the AI, feet and hands and action, and they can control the same apps that we're doing on our computer. This is still like very emerging, but we can already use APIs. We can browse the web. We can use computers. OpenAI has a product called Operator. We also had a product called Manus recently that showed how you can use computers. There's several companies that are coming out and doing this. And tool use is just like humans. So now I want you to picture, right? This is still the human in the Amazon forest by itself, but all of a sudden it has like a survival backpack with all kinds of tools it can use. And all of a sudden the chances for AI to do interesting stuff are increased. But the real killer thing does not happen until the network comes around. Because when humans can work in a tribe, they'll survive. When AI can start working as a network, things change. So when we talked about the history of humanity, fire, wheel, printing press, electricity, maybe electricity and internet kind of go hand in hand. Well, 2,000 years from now, people are not interested in all the details. That was kind of like so close. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, fire, the wheel, printing press, and then we had electricity and internet all together. All right, when people are going to look back at the evolution of this network, they're going to think about it the same way. It all happened really fast. All of a sudden, we had language models. Then, next thing, they knew how to use tools. Next thing, they knew how to collaborate over protocols. But I want you to stop for a moment, because it's all going so fast. It might go over your head, and you may have not noticed. But what is happening here? We've just said that the entire history of humanity can somehow be told in stories of us collaborating and using tools. And all of our achievements and all of our civilization are the result of that achievement, of that capability of using tools and network. But wait a minute, I just told you that AI models are starting to use tools and about to network with one another. Wait a moment, what is happening here? You shouldn't just side brush this as, oh, this is a feature update, yeah, new release, every day new releases, whatever. No, let's pause for a moment and reflect on what that means, because I assure you, 100 years from now, people are going to go to school and study about this phase of humanity and reflect on how all this unfolded, and they're going to realize this was the birth of the next internet. This is the birth of a new superorganism, one where human minds and artificial intelligence are all joining the collective civilization we call humanity. Maybe it's humanity plus plus, or maybe it's humanity 1.1. I don't know. Some people call this all kinds of words. So, but the interesting thing is that in all of this collective consciousness with AI, it still only requires the fundamental intelligence of one unit of AI. All right, as long as that one unit, just like one human brain, as long as that one artificial intelligence model can network and use tools, you can build a network on top of that. And we'll all agree that a network of toddlers with knives is not a good idea. Okay, we'll all agree that an AI model that's like a toddler given access to advanced tools can cut you like knives. And a lot of people are talking about AI safety in that context. But you know what? The AI toddler will grow up and will be able to use those tools safely. In the next few years, we're going to see major progress here. We're all convinced that is true. But it still only requires one fundamental unit of intelligence, right? And so that is a collective consciousness that is at the foundation of this new internet. So we went from Gen AI 1.0, just LLMs, to 1.5, RAG and vector databases, to 2.0, agent-based systems. My definition of agent is really simple. If I say that you have agency, I mean that you're not in a jail cell and you can move around the world and do stuff. If you can use tools, you have agency. If you can speak, you can act freely, you have agency. AI models now can use tools, can browse the web, and if they can browse the web, they can do about half the stuff that many employees are doing working remotely. And if they can use computers, this is where we're headed. Agency is basically the ability to use tools freely in the open world. This is where we are now. They're not doing a perfect job at it, but they're doing a decent job at it. So what happens after this? They start networking. We get multi-agent systems. And when we get multi-agent systems, I want everyone to understand this. This could be going two ways in the future. This can go the closed way or the open way. The open way is what we all love. It's called the internet. The closed way is what, well, more like the App Store on Apple, where Apple is the gatekeeper of all apps and what's allowed and what's not allowed. I'm going to leave the philosophizing and all of that. What is better to you guys? But multi-agent systems, one way that you can envision this as an open internet is if you would imagine that every web domain, your website, basically becomes an AI agent that represents your .com. Okay? So if my agent wants to talk to your agent, it just goes to your .com, it finds the protocol file that says it, here's what's available, and they just start chatting. So the way that works, okay? Let's say I want to buy some Levi's jeans, right? So my assistant, which might be Google, Siri, Alexa, whatever, or my home open source version, which I'll probably favor to have because that's a lot of information to know about me with those assistants. But my assistant will go to the internet, talk to Levi's.com agent, and they're going to have a chat. And my assistant's going to say, yeah, you know, that's his size. And this is the colors he likes. And, you know, don't order that stretchy thing. He don't like that. He wants this fabric. And the agent knows me and does all that talking for me. So the protocols today is like, you have to understand this. This is important. We're talking about the next internet. You guys are marketers. The current internet, the websites, are designed for humans. The first generation of AI, what is it doing? It is learning how to browse the web as if it's a human. You know what that is called? Inefficient. Okay, think about this nonsense. Let's say you want to buy a new iPhone. Let's say you like The Verge. You go to The Verge, you read the review of the new iPhone. What iPhone do you have? Last year's model? Maybe if you like being broke. But most likely, you have a model from 2 or 3 years ago. Tell me what publication will write an article, the new iPhone compared to last year's model, to the model 2 years ago, to the model 3 years ago, to the model 4 years ago, to the model 5 years ago. Nobody does that. So for you to know if you want to buy this new phone, you have to go to the website, go read the article, go back to the spec page from 2 years ago, read that article, and then synthesize the information, figure out how it's different than the phone you currently have. Because no article tells you how it's different from the phone 2 years ago. Every article tells you how it's different from the one from last year. All right. That is nonsense. Imagine how much I have to use the search function, click around, read the article, sit down. That is just completely not human friendly. You know those movies then they say in the end, like, no animals were harmed during the making of this movie? I think the internet harms humans. Like, browsing can be inhuman. Our shopping experiences can be inhuman. But imagine, and don't have to imagine it very long because I promise you this is coming. Your personal assistant will be your personal shopper. And your personal assistant will be personally shopping on .coms. And what are those .coms going to be? They're going to be networked agents. They're going to talk. So how is a brand supposed to prepare for that? Right? Today you have your website and you add content and you optimize it for humans, but very soon the majority of traffic is going to come from agents talking to your agent. They're not going to be clicking around and everything. That's nonsense. They're going to go straight to the agent and ask the question. Here's what I need, bottom line. Because all of this costs energy, remember? We don't have enough of it. We need 700 plus X more energy than we think we can make in the next 10 years. So we're not going to do inefficient protocols. You can bet that this is going to become reality. Multi-agent systems are agents that can talk to each other. This is going to play out at the workspace as well, the workforce. So you're going to have a marketing team, and in the marketing team, you're going to have an agent that helps with writing, and one that helps connect to your CRM, one that helps social media. Humans are going to supervise these systems, just like you supervise your employees. But guys, this is happening already. The entire company, Smith OS, that we've created is based on this belief, and we started 2 years ago. And I'm not stopping because the world is going this way. I don't know if I end up being the company that they're going to talk about in the history books. Maybe I'm one of many, maybe others succeed. But what I know 100% in my heart is that this is happening. Whether it's me or other people, you have to be ready. So we're going to have Digimarcon 2030, whatever, right? This is what they're going to be talking about. And maybe you'll remember you were in this room when I talked about it. And then some other people are going to know I talked about this 2 years ago. My co-founders, we were in Mexico, they were quite upset at me. They said, what is an AI agent? Talk to me in plain English. 2 years ago, nobody was talking about agents. But this is happening, and you have to be ready. So the web is alive. I see it as a collective consciousness, a superorganism. And we're going to elevate civilization and humanity as a whole because of it, because we're going to have a lot more network density. And when these agents communicate, I'm going to tell you, Google just announced agent-to-agent protocol, A2A. That's a big one. Cisco is leading an initiative called Agency, ensuring that the agent-to-agent communication is open source and free and not walled garden. These are all initiatives to take a look at. And in this rise of collective consciousness and multi-agent systems, that's what I call Web 3. Web 3 to me is executable web. It's an interactive web. It's a web of humans and agents all collaborating and achieving great things together. Customer experiences are going to be radically different. You're thinking about an Amazon or Shopify store, that's going to feel like dinosaur. It's going to feel like Yellow Pages. Agents are going to be at the center of everything, and your personal agent is going to be the piece of technology you trust even more than your browser, that has your bookmarks and everything, but knows everything about you. So we're going to see a total transformation of the web and e-commerce. And here, this is one of the slides that are updated, A2A and agency protocols. And then we're also going to engage with customers with brand agents. These are going to be 24/7 or best sales people or best customer support people, and they're always available on any platform. And that leads to the agent-to-agent economy. I predict that this is going to surpass the human-to-human and human-to-agent economy. Eventually, agents are going to buy from agents at far larger rates than humans buy from humans or humans buy in computers. The biggest economy will be the agent-to-agent economy. Now, I also believe that this is going to be done over over digital currency that is optimized for microtransactions, very fast transactions. For example, I might just ask you to do one calculation for me and I'll pay you 0.00001 cent. That's a microtransaction that's going to go over the blockchain. And so entire agent economies are going to have, if you create this is the future of SaaS, by the way. If you create a great agent that other agents network with and say, oh, you're the agent for that, then those agents are going to pay your agent money to do that function, and that incentivizes you as the human to create and maintain that service and make sure it's the best. And then you're going to have Digimarcon 2035, and you're going to be talking here, how can I make sure my agent is discovered by other agents? I mean, you're going to have this talk, and you're going to remember you heard it here. Okay, so in government and society, I believe that eventually we'll think it's just stupid to tax human labor, period. Just tax those agents. They're working while we're sleeping. And that can then be the fundamentals of paying for society. I also think we're going to have massive science innovations. And ultimately, because I'm at time, I'm something very big on this. I love this word. The first time I heard this word, I fell in love with it. It's called soulcraft. Everyone here is working for economic subsistence. Somehow, we need to work to pay the bills. All right? I want to live in a world where I can work for my passion, for the people in my life, and not just because I have to survive. And when I do, it's not work, it's soulcraft. And so I'm going to end my presentation on that slide. But I think that we can really get a better life. We can rethink what work is. We can rethink what the internet will be. Things are going to change a lot. But now we have a little preview of what's to come, what to expect. And this will happen maybe faster than we all think. Thank you. The microphone is there, so let's get some questions.
So at what point do you expect we reach singularity? The point of like no return where these systems overtake us?
Okay, so that's a loaded question with like a number of conclusions in the question itself. I believe in synergy. Just like two humans are not the same, two AI models are not the same, and for sure AI models are not the same as humans. There's a role that humans have to play, and a role that your calculator plays, and a role that your phone plays. When we're networked, it's not you or me, but it's what we together achieve that creates humanity. And I think that is the story with humans and AI. It's the multiplication.
And then, sorry, one quick follow-up question. Like, in the not so distant future, I mean, it's still about content, right? I mean, these agents will talk to each other, and I briefly touched on that on my presentation. Is it still going to be the content, like human-created content, that's going to encourage buying decisions or keep those conversations going between these agents?
Yeah, so there's going to be information sources, primary sources of net new information. I'm releasing a new vehicle. What are the specifications? What is weight? What is the range? Right? Where does that data come from? Well, maybe there's an AI agent somehow involved in measuring the weight and publishing that data, and that's content. Content is information. Content is experiences. So we heard that in the talk. It's the experience. But AI to AI agent communication might have a totally different language than English. Like, why are we talking in tokens to each other? Maybe like bits and bytes are easier to communicate with each other. Today, our language models are just that. Maybe at some point, agent to agent communication is one language and how we discover content. But here's what I believe. This is why I advocate so strongly that you invest in your brand, in your personal brand, and in your business brand. Because at the end of the day, when another agent wants to know something about something else, it needs to go and ask for that information because it doesn't know it. Where is it going to get that information from? Whether it's through a search engine or to its own network, it will come from trusted sources of information. Now, these new trusted sources of information will be other agents, but who feeds those agents the content? Who moderates that? Who supervises it? Who builds it out? Humans will. So companies will have to make sure that all the principles of SEO and web optimization are true for the next frontier as well. How fast is your agent in responding? My agent doesn't want to sit around 10 seconds waiting for you to think. It wants an answer fast. That's technical SEO. What about accurate content? If my agent starts giving you false information, am I going to trust you more or less? There you have your expertise and trust. So all of the principles that you're familiar with from regular marketing are translating into this next paradigm as well. All right, last question.
Great presentation. Honestly, it blew my mind. I'm like, whoa. So we work in SEO, and we noticed that, like our website, for example, a decrease in website traffic, but our sales pipeline is doing great. And, you know, in marketing, there's always the challenge about attribution, right? And nowadays, we're trying to optimize our content for AI, because, you know, in the Google search engine, you have the people also ask, and it's taking snippets out of your website. So the user is not even going to click on your website. They're just going to get their answer immediately from the search engine and then dip somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know your take about when it comes to attribution now with the whole agent to agent thing and that sort of thing. Like, how can we prove that and achieve our business objectives? Like, hey boss, yeah, we increased revenue by 30% due to this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered why, like, the PPC people get like 80% of the budget and the SEOs get like 10% of the budget? There's one word, it's attribution. If you can prove your work actually has an impact, you get the money. It's that simple, right? Plus, people are impatient. They want instant results. So PPC, right? But we're going to have to rethink. We have to rethink the whole world of attribution and KPIs for the marketing world. As this changes, we're going to have to evolve our methods of analytics. And I know a lot of platforms are evolving with it. For example, Ahrefs is a company that's a staple in the SEO community. If you're an agency, you typically will have something like that. And they are already adding tools to start tracking how you're doing in the AI search snippets. Are you showing up? So you mentioned something important. Your traffic was down, but your sales were going up. Wait, that seems like negative correlation or something. Like, what's going on here? But at some point, you have to start recognizing that you appearing in the AI search result is the result of your content work and caused a person to be influenced towards a different decision. And that too is marketing. It's not appreciated. We do not have the KPIs and measurements for it to show our boss, here's our result. But that will come. Why? Because people can profit from creating such a tracking tool, right? And so influence will become like an example KPI in the future. But the types of traffic that will persist is branded traffic. We heard it from Chris. People who want to come check out your site or talk to your agent will do so. They're going to search for you. Experiences that you can only get on your site and not inside of an AI chatbot. Like, you have to actually go to the car configurator on the car website to configure the car and see that. It's not something you can just get out of an assistant or a chat window. And then anything that is like primary news and source content that you publish, you become trusted and an authority. That's the kind of content that AI agents will say, I want to talk to your agent about that NGO mission. And then your NGO gets recommended rather than the other NGO, which leads to more sales.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for the conference. Thanks, everyone.